progress.
All right, tonight we're going through the fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets of finance, debt, fringe benefits, liability insurance, transfers, other funds, and all other budgets in the public library. Okay, we're starting on page 19. Page 19 shows the Board of Selectmen budget, which is made up of board clerk fees, the stipends to the selectmen, and program service and a contribution to project graduation. There is no increase in this fund. Page 21 is the first selectmen's budget. The first selectmen's budget is made up of the salary of the first selectman and the executive assistant. There's items for conference meetings and dues. There's dues to the Connecticut Council of Municipalities, Connecticut Small Towns, Middlesex Chamber, and then program services and a town report. There is a reduction in this budget by 1.56%. The total budget is $172,397. Page 23 is the Ethics Commission budget. The Ethics Commission budget is made up of an amount for a board clerk and then miscellaneous fees. The miscellaneous fees generally paid for the P.O. box and some ancillary supplies that they may need. There's no change in this budget. Page 25 is the probate court. Probate court assigns us the rates. This year, we were told that the rate was $13,720. Those usually are provided to the first selectman, and that's the rates that we have in place right now. That's 0.15% increase. Page 27, the elections, and this year there would be, we're anticipating one general election, 2 primaries, 1 referendum. If there should be other primary or other referendums to be needed, there will be additional funds. In this year, the election worker stipends is generally, there's a few people that are above minimum wage, but the majority of that is minimum wage driven. The minimum wage does go up to $14 an hour, July 22, and then again in June 1st of 23 to $15 an hour. So those are some of the items in that budget. So this budget is based upon additional activities and needs, therefore showing a 9.93. The budget is relatively small, so when you increase it, the percentage shows a high percentage. Finance department is the finance department has 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time benefits administrator. There's rental use of buildings. That is for custodians from the Board of Ed side that work on town functions. So the people are charged there, and then the revenues come into property rental. So that's why if you'll see that in the 21 when the schools were kind of closed, that went down to nothing, and then it's coming back and as more people are utilizing the buildings, that number continues to go up. Service contracts is our payments to the enterprise financial system as well as EDP. There's a couple other ancillary costs, but those 2 are the main components. The budget is at 1.74% increase. Page 31 is the collector of revenue budget. The collector of revenue has 1 person in it, is the actual collector. The water and sewer employee, which is the assistant collector, is paid from the water and sewer budget. The service contracts is the QDS system, and that is the main fees in this budget. And then there are specific conference meetings and dues. There are specific educational requirements that the tax collector has. That's why you see the increase in the 2022 year and that continued amount in 23 as they're required to take educational courses. Now it's a newer rule. 3.51% increase. Page 33 is the assessor. The assessor is made up of a full-time assessor and a half-time clerk is shared with the library. They have they have contractual service contracts for their various softwares. That's what makes up 31,000. The conference meetings and dues are for the assessor as well as the Board of Assessment Appeals. Any meetings that they go get charged into that account as well. And that is up a 4.03, primarily based on service contract increases. Page 35 is the Board of Assessment Appeals. This is not a revaluation year, so then, so 22 is a revaluation year, 23 is not a revaluation year, thus the drop in the budget. Page 37 is the Town Council. Town Council makes up our labor and some pension matters are in this. So there'll be labor attorneys and then pension. We also have our general town council, and then then there's town council matters for planning and development. There are some, tax matters once in a while in those, and the total budget there is $85,000. In the past few years, we've been stayed within that. Other years, you'll exceed that number. It all depends on the number of issues and matters that are happening in a particular year. Page 39 is the town clerk. The town clerk is an elected full-time clerk with a full-time assistant town clerk. That's the majority. There's index and recording fees, and there's some items for service contracts, and they do also have to attend meetings and conferences, and there's a specific dues that they have to do for various organizations. That is down a 0.22% decrease in that budget. Central services on page 41. This is a budget where we buy our centralized items and areas. We've put in measures where we try to buy as many office supplies and related items as such in this one central area, so that we try to get our best economies of scale while monitoring the supplies that we purchase mostly through the finance department. There's copiers and printing supplies. We have a print per copy agreement with A&A, as well as that is also for supplies such as some toners that are not part of the agreement. The copier agreements are within the service contracts, as well as there's items in there for the work that has to be done to monitor employees for drug testing and the such. So there's some various items in that. That is a budget that has been stable and has a 0% increase. The technology budget has a 7.66% increase this year. The majority of the reason for that is we added right now we were down an employee in the part-time, a full-time employee that we're trying to replace that. We have the job opening out there, looking for a replacement of that position. Generally, there are 2 full-time employees, and right now there's 1 part-time employee that's been trying to help with the other full-time employees while they're not here. But that position was left in this budget, and the majority of it was to try to help to comply with the Police Accountability Act, as well as other technology matters. Once the body cameras are in, there's redaction work and other work that's affiliated with the Police Accountability Bill that at this point probably would not be able to be handled by an officer. So we're trying to handle this within the technology budget. Otherwise, this budget has remained stable. That really is the increase to this budget. Overtime is generally under budgeted in this, and we try to maintain within the global budget. That's a hard one due to the required overtime for alarms and items that occur outside of the normal working hours of the department. Page 45 is the fire department. The fire department is showing currently a 7.36% increase. There's a few items in this where this increase is coming from. The firefighters that attend a certain level of calls receive an annual stipend. This is monitored by the fire chief. And in this budget, we were attempting to give the members of the fire department an $1,800 annual stipend instead of the $1,600 that they've been receiving. So we're just trying to show, provide the responders a little more funding there. So that you'll see in account 11003, that's the increase in that account. And mostly the main account, there is an increase in the licensing fees, 31008. The software that is utilized by the fire department has a built-in increase in that as it was updated, and through the service agreement, it steps up over time, and this is one of those step-ups in that period. Medical exam and supplies, we're seeing that 35001. We're seeing increases in pricing due to just the overall pricing increases and shortage of supply of certain items. And through 51001, throughout this, we try to utilize around a $3 a gallon for the gas and diesel, which is right now it's much above that, and we are on the float right now. So we're hoping that will get better, but right now you'll see that throughout the budget as a higher number on the gas and diesel due to that utilization of around a $3 a gallon. Sometimes it was about $2.90 we used. That was not. It was a much lower number in the previous budgets. We've seen gas and diesel go into very high levels at this time. Heating fuel, I mean, it's hard to judge, as everything right now is spiraling upwards. We left in this budget, we left heating fuel mostly the same or slightly above where it was. That could be an area of concern if the pricing continues to go up everywhere. We did not, we took into consideration gas and diesel, not necessarily as much into heating fuel, which is, there's kind of three components of heating fuel. There's there's oil, there's natural gas, and then there's propane. So right now that's budget was a 7.36% increase. Page 47 is the fire marshal's budget. This was just really a cost of living increase, and really probably not even that out. On the part-time payroll position, that's really all we changed on that budget. Page 49 is the emergency dispatch budget. The emergency dispatch budget is made up more or less of three components. It's the interlocal agreement with Middletown, it's Valley Shore EMS agreement, and it's Johnson Controls monitoring of all the buildings within the town. So there was a built-in, in the fiscal 22 budget, there was a built-in increase for the interlocal agreement, and then that, as you recently approved the renewal, that is now gone from, it was in fiscal year 21, it was 124,637. It's now 137,101. I believe that in the budget 22 we had around 129. So you do see an increase in this budget, but not to the level of that due to that potential. We had a little bit of an increase in there as well, and there was a little bit on the Johnson monitoring that we had in there as an increase that right now we did not expend. If we do add any monitoring, we could have to watch that number. But right now we this had a 3.86% increase. Page 51 is the police department. Police department's going up a 5.5% increase. So the salaries go up based on contractual agreements. And then if you look at 1302, there was a request for an additional officer that was not able to be funded, but in the absence of that, there was a request of additional overtime, as there's additional rules for the Police Accountability Act, so there's training that will be required. With that additional training will cause police officers to be off to go to that training, which would require overtime to cover the shifts for the police. So it's the police budget's a tricky budget, as if the officer has to do something different than work the shift, they have to be replaced so that the officers are not alone on a shift. Private duty, the captain expects that to go down slightly as the bridge work is coming closer to an end. You'll see in 5101 the larger increase. As in 21, we were over the budget as there's more usage, as people get more with all the officers working, and then as when private duty jobs are high, when there's additional patrolling, those prices go up, so that we have the 44,000 number on that area. So that's it's a $14,000 increase in that line item. Uniforms are going up as expected costs, as well as you can see in the past, we've spent above or at that number that we've budgeted. That's what we have for the police budget. Emergency management. The emergency management is funded by a portion of that is funded by a partial grant. It's usually made up of the emergency management coordinator, and then a clinic, there's a dispensing clinic person that works periodically or as needed. They have training, with the cell phones, the equipment supplies, and an emergency food fund. There is no increase in this budget. Page 55 is the building department. Building department is made up of a building official and a half-time assistant. The half-time assistant is shared with the planning department. So that's really what this is. We also increased the gas and diesel due to the increase in cost of gas and diesel. At this, so now we would jump to page 73, as 57 to 72 are related to other budgets that we'll talk about a different night. Page 73 is the planning department budget. The planning department budget is made up of 2 employees, a planner type position, as well as a half-time clerk that is shared with the administrative assistant that is shared with the building department. In this budget, we took a position that was a 35-hour position and tried to make it a 40-hour position. This will hopefully enhance office coverage. So there will be 2 40-hour positions within that department, the building official and then the planning official. With that, there's no other changes in that budget. Page 75 is the zoning enforcement department. That was made up of 1 employee. At the time, in fiscal year 22, we had budgeted about a 24-hour position. During fiscal 22, this individual had been working about a 26.5-hour week to try to cover and work on some of the matters that were going on in that office. Since when we put this budget out, the zoning enforcement officer has resigned. So that is a budget with a person at 26.5 hours. Page 77 is the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's monies in here for the town clerk, and then there's amounts for the LCOG, the lower, the LCOG. So the LCOG provides us with that number. So that is the reason for the change there. There are some trainings that are required, so you'll see conference meetings and dues kind of go up and through a bunch of these various ancillary departments, and that's some of the training that's required for either the commissioner members or the staff that's part of that. Zoning Board of Appeals, you see a slight increase in the conference meetings and dues. That's all that changed in that. Inland Wetlands is an inland wetlands contracted person that we have, as well as a board clerk, and then we make a payment of like a dues to the Coastal Conservation District. Change in that is the conference meetings and dues. Conservation Commission, the board clerk, we went up slightly in the board clerk fees, and that's the only change in that budget. Economic Development Commission. In this, there had been a request by at the time by the department head to add back the grants consultant. So this budget does add back the grant consultant in there, and does slightly lower the marketing programs funds. There are some things that still need to be done through the marketing program, but they'll have to either get addressed in this year's budget or, you know, as the new if this is funded, the new consultant that would come on would administer and try to get that funded in subsequent years. The page 87 is the Capital Commission. That's $500 for a board clerk. No change in that budget. Page 89 is the Chatham Health District. The Chatham Health District votes on this. It seems like we had a slight, for all the towns, we had a slight population increase over in the year that they utilized this. So for us, we got an increase, and most of the other towns got a decrease. So, and that the number that they did utilize was on the the state site. So that is the number that would be the number that should have been used. So therefore, we get an increase of 3.68%. Page 91, that's a defunct fund. Page 93 is social services. Social services is a budget that's usually run by the first Selectmen's department. And these are various charities or organizations that help townspeople that the first Selectman deems that should receive a contribution. Dial Ride is a busing is a busing program that we're a member of and a support, and there's a rural transit program. Those are programs. The emergency shelter is shelters if for people that need shelter. The first selectman usually will assist in making those arrangements with either the youth or senior center director as needed. And then there's funds that are here for the Memorial Day Parade. The Memorial Day Parade asked for slightly more than this, but we gave an extra $500 to this. And then we have the Veterans Activities. There's monies for the Historical Society and then the fair. Page 54 is the Senior Center. The Senior Center is made up of a full-time director and a full-time administrative assistant. There was a recent retirement in this, and that is the reasoning for the decrease in the overall budget. Program services were slightly increased, kind of to restore it back to, I think this year when they lowered it, I think maybe concerning with the pandemic, but they're kind of trying to restore that back to a level where, you know, programs can be done and activities can be administered by the director there. So that's one of those numbers that will have to be reviewed and watched is over time as program activities increase, there could possibly need to be an increase in that in future budgets. But in this instance, we're making this be the number, and that's really all that's in this budget, $145,000. So, page 97 is administrative agent to the elderly. There is a grant that comes in the general fund, so you'll see that provides some monies back on this. This is a fund where we should slightly every year, they require a maintenance of effort. So in this instance, we're going up slightly in the budget in an effort to maintain that level of effort and show that we're increasing the level of efforts, as well as gas and diesel prices are up higher. There has also been an increase in ridership. So, page 99 is the Portland Library. The Portland Library, majority of the items, the payroll is based upon contractual. The majority of the other items under service contracts roughly stay the same. Some of the areas, as we see more activity and more usage in the library, we see electricity actually increasing, as we saw in 21, and then there's been additional distribution increases by Eversource. So we put some additional funding there, and then in heating fuel, as you can see in 21, we were above, and as you know, heating fuel rates are going up. So we put our best estimate there, and slight increases in books and digital media. Overall, with the budget at $779,100, or a 4.07 increase.
Tom, I think I'm going to stop you there for now. So we will. We do have a regular Board of Selectmen meeting at 7:30, and then after that meeting, we can come back to the budget if that is okay with the Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
So I will entertain a motion to recess until after the Board of Selectmen meeting.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Sean, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries. So thank you, and we will come back. And thank you, Tom. Dave, we good to go? All right, the time is 7:30, so I will call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The next item on tonight's agenda is the approval of minutes from the regular Board of Selectmen meeting held on March 2nd, 2022. Has everyone been able to review those minutes? Is there any, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Bobby.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any errors, changes, or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes for March 2, 2022, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries. For tonight's agenda, under acceptance of agenda, I do have one addition to the agenda. Under item 7, old business, I would like to add a letter C for an update on Brainerd Place. I don't see him here yet, but I was told that Dan Bertram will be here to provide us with an update. So I would like to put that on the agenda. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor of accepting the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. I do not have any communications or correspondence this evening, so we can move to public comment. Is there anyone in the chat? Nothing in the chat. Any in the audience? Any public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item 7, old business. And tonight is our second meeting of the month, so we have our monthly report from the Committee on Solidarity, and April Graves is here to give us an update. Thank you. Hi, April.
So we just completed our community survey, which all of you should have received the results. I sent them to everybody, and then we sent each individual department their results also. But each individual department only got their individual results. You guys got the entire survey result. And then next, we have been working on Juneteenth. We've contacted DJs, food vendors. We're working on some decorations, advertising, stuff like that. I sent you late today. Sorry about that.
I did get it. Thank you, April.
The budget. And so we're going really well with that, and our partner groups that are working with us, they're joined in, and so everything looks like it's going to be really good this year. And we also are working with the library. I'm hoping to meet with Jan next week, and talking to Jesse also about maybe coordinating some stuff with youth services. And the banners will be presented, the mock-ups that the Connecticut College students are working on for the banner design should be presented at our next meeting.
April, what's the date that Juneteenth is going to be celebrated on?
Saturday, June 18th.
Thank you.
From 11 to 2.
Any questions for April? All right, and we'll talk about the budget request at a later date, but we did receive it, and I'll share it with the rest. Did you send it to the whole board?
No.
Okay, I'll share it. So, okay, thank you, April. Okay, so next up on the agenda is appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions. Are there any appointments?
We have one appointment. It is a nomination for Robert Petzold for the Economic Development Commission.
So you're making a motion
Yes.
to nominate Robert Pretzel, okay, to the Economic Development Commission. Is there a second?
I second that.
All right, any discussion? I do want to say I did meet with Bob this week. I think he is a good fit for this commission as a, obviously a resident and a local business owner. So, and he's got, you know, many years of experience that I think that this commission can benefit from. And he's got some great ideas too. So I am excited about Bob on EDC. So a motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. And any nominations? No. I do have two more nominations tonight. So the Lower Connecticut Regional Council of Governments needs a regional planning committee representative from the town of Portland. Typically, it's members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I've reached out to both Chantel Foster, who is Vice Chair of Planning and Zoning, as well as Bob Ellsworth, who's the Chair. And Chantel would be willing to serve as the representative for Portland, and Bob would be willing to serve as an alternate. So is there a motion to nominate Chantel to that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ralph and Sean. All those in favor of Chantel Foster representing Portland on the Regional Planning Committee in the Lower Connecticut Regional Council of Governments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. And then we need a motion for Robert Ellsworth to represent the Lower Connecticut Regional Council of Governments for Portland as an alternate.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Is Dan Bertram maybe with us virtually? Okay, so I think we'll have to move on, and then if Dan comes, we will meet with him when he gets here. Under new business, some really exciting news happened over the weekend, and I know Mike Pelton was there on Sunday at St. Clement's Castle here in Portland for the Lions Club, which held their regional humanitarian award banquet. And our own Ruth Mayo had been nominated and received a humanitarian award. And Mike, now there were 14, I think, applicants or 14 honorees at this event.
There were 14 honorees, and every honoree that was up there from different Lions Club organizations had excellent credentials. It was a group of some really qualified people, and it was just wonderful having ours win it. So
Yeah,
it
so
was
out of the 14 highly regarded individuals, our own Ruth Mayo earned the Humanitarian of the Year award for our region in the Lions Club, and it's an extraordinarily big honor. And so, Mike, would you like to read the proclamation that we did?
I would love to.
And before you read it, I do want to highlight that at the time it says 25 years, but I found out after Ruth has been doing the food bank for 57 years, so it's a long time.
That's a little
just
different.
57 years. All right. So this proclamation was for Ruth C. Mayo, 2022 Humanitarian Award winner. Whereas Ruth Mayo has been serving as coordinator of the Portland Food Bank for well over 25 years, perhaps 53 years. Whereas the food bank originated through the Portland Visiting Nurses Association, located on Main Street, where Ruth worked as a nurse. Upon learning PBNA planned to discontinue offering the food bank, Ruth, recognizing the crucial need, approached the town to request it be housed in one of its facilities so that it may continue to serve the residents. Thus, it became housed at the lower level of the senior center at 7 Waverly Avenue. And whereas Ruth and her husband Nunzi, another wonderful volunteer, have steadfastly served those in need beyond providing items that are available at the food bank. With their infinite connections and esteemed reputation in the community, there is no household item impossible for them to acquire. And whereas, beyond providing provisions to thousands of families through the food bank. The Mayos recruited and supervised an equally amazing group of food bank volunteers. And whereas Ruth and Nunzi offer compassion, provide leadership and hope for the betterment of all. Now therefore be it resolved that Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman of the town of Portland, Connecticut, did hereby extend our greatest respect to Ruth T. Mayo for her valuable charity work and congratulate her for being bestowed with the 2022 Portland Lions Club Humanitarian Award, acknowledged on the 13th day of March of this year.
Thank you, Mike.
Congratulations, Ruth, well deserved.
Very well deserved.
And Nunzi, let's not forget Nunzi.
Yes.
They come as a pair.
Yes, they do.
Brian?
Yep. Oh, I see, hi Dan, how you doing? I think we can put Dan, I mean, we just moved over, so, we had you on the agenda and you just missed it, but I think we can put you up if you wanna come on up and, give us an update on Brainerd Place. Yeah, yeah.
How's everyone?
Good.
See everybody? So, let's see. All right, so, good evening, everyone. Well, we're out there knocking stuff down. Sure everybody's been by. So, definitely making good progress. I'm pleased to be launching finally here. I would say that on the demo schedule, in terms of what's been going on, we probably have about 6 to 8 weeks left of knocking buildings down. And so we're working on releasing site packages for the infrastructure work. So that's utilities and general site stuff. You see a construction trailer out there. So we're getting dressed up for the dance. On the building E side of things, that's the first major construction going on. And that permit's been applied for as having an external review to the town process for at least the foundation permit right now. And that'll be, I would say, completed in the next few weeks. Now, the reason we're here tonight is related to the tax agreement and the issue that I would say we have is in consolidating all the parcels, because there are 14 parcels that we're closing on essentially. So we're all ready to go with the financing, but there was the acquisition of 10 Perry Avenue, and so when you drive down Perry, there's one home sitting there all by itself. And the gentleman who lives there is World War II vet and a personal friend of Fred Hassan's, a seller, and frankly, I didn't want to put more pressure on that than I had to, frankly. So we have started the job, we're continuing the job, but that piece hasn't been, I guess, maybe I didn't compel it. I explained to Ryan that, you know, you make decisions as a human being, not always a, you know, say a business person, and you say, okay, well, this gentleman's been there for a very long time, but a few weeks back, I've been saying to Fred, well, we need to move on this, and so he has pushed, and I believe they have a closing set up for March 25th, right? And so that then allows us to do what we do after it, where we then are able to take all of the parcels into ownership and consolidate them. So because we had had the milestones that were placed on the tax agreement from last fall, and then we had a notice that we'd missed the two that we talked about, the building E filing and also the consolidation of parcels. It looks like we have a 60-day period post-notice that would expire if we didn't extend it. And for us to close on the financing, we need a tax agreement that's in good standing per the underwriting for the deal. So on the one hand, I'm saying sorry we're here talking about this. Like I've said that to Ryan a few times. And on the other hand, I'm saying, but I had to be kind of a jerk to this other guy in order to not be standing here. And since the job wasn't being slowed down and we were moving, I kind of applied the pressure I thought appropriate, if you will. So it's a pain in the neck to do an extension on this, but that is essentially our request for another 30 days on that, of that notice period. That would cover the consolidation of parcels, and it would cover the Building E submission. We have a request also on the Starbucks building, and there's a permit filing that has a date of March 31st, and that one's not actually coming from us, but I think that it would make sense if you had the appetite for it to delay that a little bit, because Starbucks is going to a larger size that they're looking for, and I think I mentioned this in a prior meeting, so slightly, you know, a few hundred feet more. They wanted to move the location of the pickup window, the drive-in window, and then have gone back and forth on where they want that. So there is a little bit of, like, we designed the rest of the building when they answer these fundamental questions. So my feeling is that probably a 60-day extension on that milestone is what we would request for related to Starbucks. The other things are related to Sage and Brainerd, and I don't see any issue with that, because what happens at the end of this 6 to 8 week period of this existing, you know, demo program is that we get into those two houses next, and we do some very selective demo and refine the interior fit-up plans, because we're essentially just laying out the uses inside those buildings that have been kind of master planned for the Brainerd house for 2 levels, right? But there's some other things that are in the basement that we'll discover as we get into some of the demo in terms of what we want to do with that. So there's just some details to work out there. But I don't see an issue making the original timelines on that scope. So again, sorry for the kind of the download, but those are the moving pieces, and we're out there working. I flew in on Monday afternoon and just came straight to the site and was happy with what I was seeing. I think that one thing that's interesting when you get out there is to start getting a perspective on those historic buildings from different points of view that you didn't have before, because there were just buildings in the way, because it had just gotten so dense around them. So I think it's really, I mean, as everybody knows, I'm a fan of the Brainerd house, and I think that's going to be exquisite. Sage isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It'll probably be objectively nice, because it is, as we clear out around it, it's looking like that'll be a nice restaurant location. So those are the highlights for tonight anyway. I just when Ryan invited me to come up, I said I would like to come in person versus just zooming in. So I apologize for not being on time. So.
Any of the selectmen have any questions for Dan?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So with these delays in the beginning of the projects here, do you foresee any extensions at the back end of this? Or you plan on still maintaining your deadline?
Yeah, no, I think we're doing all right. And that was one of the reasons that I wasn't pressuring Fred so much, right, on 10 Perry, because that house, I'll just overshare here because it's just the data we're dealing with. We'll take ownership, and now it's another thing. I'm like, when do you have to be out of it so we can knock it down, right? That kind of thing. So it's not fully in the way of rolling on Building E, right? So because that's sort of, a lot of the schedule's built around that first apartment building, right? That 99 unit building. I don't think we've really lost any time since we've been here, because we're out there doing the work. And there's such a site-heavy focus, right? The infrastructure around it, bringing in the utilities, the storm, just basic stuff. That we're moving, right? And so it's not, we're not off schedule. It's just that this one we had to focus on, because it's just keeping other processes from going, so.
We've been fortunate to have favorable weather, too.
Yeah, you know, I mean, well, one thing that's good about demo is, conditions are, you can keep going, because you're just getting rid of it in a responsible way, right? But you're right, it's nicer for working,
So I have a
in bad
question. So obviously I know you're working on your demo.
Yeah.
So when you complete the demo, will there be an overall approach to going through the entire property? Do you only focus, where Starbucks is, you'll focus on building E, and you'll just work those areas and just leave the other areas alone for now, or how's that work?
There is a phasing plan, right, that concentrates along Marlboro, along the face of Marlboro. So there's, I don't want to give you too detailed an answer, but the focal point will initially definitely be on the building E as it relates to a building location, right? I'd have to get a little more into the weeds of myself as to what we're doing for all of the storm drainage and stuff, because that's more gravity, which is essentially going out towards Main Street and then down along it, right? And so there are multiple mobilizations that are going on sort of at different intervals, the off-site traffic work, right, to create that intersection to come in on Marlboro before you get to the Brainerd House, right? Those each have different start times. So we expect to hear back from the state on the final, signing off on basically shop drawings for the actual work going on at those intersections within, a month or two. One of the things that was a milestone on the tax agreement was the posting of the bond, right? And that was done last year. But that doesn't mean there aren't still those administrative things that go on for the approval of the actual work in the field. So the stuff that's getting the initial focus is that on and off site utility work, traffic, and then building E. And I would say that the Starbucks building is what will then follow it. It's just such a smaller and easier to build building. It can be a little bit behind. And then, like I said, the Brainerd House, because we're the end user there, we don't have like we don't have a leasing process to satisfy to see how can we pull that together. So that stays on its own schedule and has to open to become an amenity for the E-building. So you don't need it open before the E-building, right? So it's, that's what I'd say on that. The leasing of the Sage building influences the interior fit up, but we'll be able to do the outside. There is a portion of the back of that building that gets demoed, and so if you look at kind of an existing condition and then the approved site plan, there's a little tacked on area there that I think is now going to be a patio, outdoor patio. So there's slight demo that goes on in that building.
Thanks.
Sure.
I have one question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Is there any infrastructure, old infrastructure, water, sewer, coming from either the Elmcrest property or Perry Avenue that you have to disconnect from the town to separate it, to continue to do new build?
Yeah, I would say that, don't exactly hold me to this. I'm an engineer and I get into the weeds, but I'm spread across a lot of projects, so I don't want to say for sure, but I don't think there's really much of the existing infrastructure on site that we're using. And so there's, there are abandonment procedures for some of the laterals that were serving all those houses along Perry and such that I believe was administered as part of the demolition process before we were allowed to actually fully take down certain buildings. So my general feeling is that we're really not using much of the past, of anything from the past.
No, I'm just
right?
wondering if you terminated in the proper sequence, in the proper position,
For the
the laterals
Yeah.
that have to be terminated.
to the best of my knowledge, that has been something that DeMarco Constructors has worked with the town on each building as they've taken it down. We can verify that, though.
Okay. If you could, I'd like to have that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can follow up that, sure.
Is the plan to occupy, lease and occupy Building E as the additional structures are being worked on?
Yes, basically, Building E will get turned on as fast as we can build it, right? Because we are, and like I did that in that reference on the Brainerd House, right? We're the end user as it
Right.
relates to the decision maker. So we build it, we get COs, we move people in.
Well, that's what triggered my question, because I'm thinking, you know, as you take the Sage House and you get that squared away for a restaurant or retail space, and then your Brainerd House would become, you know, a facility and a usable space for the patrons of the buildings, then Building E, you would need the Brainerd House ready to roll when Building E folks move in.
Yeah, just from a marketing perspective alone,
Yeah.
right? And so we have a 150 unit building that we're opening over the next couple of months now in Danbury, and it's 6 stories tall, and so we're opening it by floor.
Mhm.
And as we're having people move in, we're saying, hey, welcome to this location, and here's the leasing center. The gym will be open in 3 months, and the pool will be open in another 4 or something. You know, you just kind of roll out a plan that way. There'll be similar things going on here in terms of which amenities you turn on. But that entry experience where you come in the main drag that with Brainerd off to the left, there's no reason not to just complete that, right? All that is from the left of the entrance to Perry. So you have a gazebo in the front of the Brainerd House, and then just all of the approaches. And there's a pool in between the Brainerd House and the Building E as well. So I think that'll look nice and together.
I'm thinking from the perspective of residents who've been driving by that property for as long as they have,
Yep.
all overgrown. That's gonna be a beautiful thing to come off the bridge and see that
Sure.
whole road front looking nice, so.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. Certainly the mobilization, just for sake of clarity, since you mentioned coming over the bridge, that pharmacy pad site, right, is something that's, being put out to the marketplace, right? And so it'd be great if CVS signed up and we moved along with that, because that was always the plan and we designed it to their specs. But if it's another user or whatever, we'll be doing that as quickly as we can, but that's gonna be a little market driven. So our concentration is getting that main entrance at the new location on Marlboro, right? And you've got a signalized intersection there that we're building and have to turn on. And Starbucks has what they want to see in place for them to open as well. And so there's certain flow around and through the site that it's good in that they're a great partner to kind of launch with, right, as an amenity. And also from my perspective, and the vibe of it is good with the town, what Starbucks says they need to open successfully, I think is just kind of my guiding, scope, if you will. And so there is a full phase 1 plan, right, that is in the approval, the zoning approval. And so that is, that's our starting point, but frankly, I think we're all on the same page. Let's get Starbucks in and on as quickly as we can, and I think that'd be a win. So.
Thank you.
I have a question. I know in the abatement that the phase 1 should be completed by late March 2024. What do you think that, like, the Starbucks building would be ready by? Because, I mean, it's the smallest and it's the easiest one to do.
Right, and I think that one, in the best case scenario, you'd have an end of year type of possibility here, but I just don't see that. I think it's pushing into 23, right? And so our deliverable to them, where we kind of create the shell that they then fit up themselves, right? There's a pass of the baton that goes between when we've created the building and when they actually would open, right? So I think it's safe to assume the Starbucks is the next spring type of event. I think that's the best thing to plan for.
And for that, the traffic light has to be incorrect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is the job, that is the trick on this job. There's so much upfront investment in the infrastructure, just to turn anything on. So that's something to talk to Ryan and talk to anybody who'll listen actually about the ideas of rolling from phase 1 into any part of phase 2 that we possibly can as quickly as possible. And that's somewhat of a conversation with the zoning commission, but they do have the discretion on this residential, commercial balancing, if you will, that we'll absolutely be asking for, a green light to keep rolling in whatever way we think the market will allow us to. And we'll be out there pitching the commercial as best we can. And we have engaged CBRE, and so you'll see the signs going up in the next couple of weeks from them.
One more thing, you said with the Starbucks permit delayed 60 days, that'll put it at the same time as the Sage.
Yeah, the Brainerd and Sage is a little bit of a discovery process because we wanted to get rid of the buildings that we knew we had to get rid of, and then that same, those same disciplines, right, just they stay on the site.
Yeah.
They just happen to then go into those buildings, right, and then we see what we have to abate, right, for turning them into usable things, and maybe we'll have some market feedback on the Sage house. I think on Sage, I'll just give you kind of like a case in point there. It may be that all we are doing is saying we want to open up the inside of Sage in a structurally, sound manner, because a lot of these buildings, and that's certainly one of them, they created all these treatment rooms within them, so it's all cut up into little spaces, and then upstairs is like this crazy, they used the floor of the upstairs to put air handlers on and run, ducts across the top. It was like, wow, you completely wrote off an entire floor of this building,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't use that anymore. So, so we plan to undo some of that stuff and at least create a showable space that you can walk through. And then it's a separate conversation when you have the use, right, for how you're fitting it up. But, we'll create the scope of what we think is doable, right? And I'm just highlighting that that's the extent to which we can know on Sage. On Brainerd, because we're the ones using it, we can make all those decisions, right? And we have laid out the first 2 floors. I just was literally on the site on Monday telling the super to get me dimensions for the basement and to start poking at that to say, okay, are we going to do, what we do when we have basements and structures in other complexes. Sometimes we'll create storage, right, for residents, right, just little storage lockers, right. And we are putting an elevator into the Brainerd house, and so, we'll kind of, to be determined on a couple of these things. It may not be cost effective because there might not be enough square footage, but those are the types of things we're working on.
Last question.
Yeah. Well, I'm here as long as you want me.
What would your time frame be for moving the Hart Jarvis house?
You knew that was coming.
I know. Thank you for bringing up the bane of my existence, right?
Well, we all know that's
No, it's a whopper.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, I'm analyzing scenarios related to the Hart Jarvis house. That are everything short of condemning it and knocking it down. So short of. I'm not saying that, right? But
does it interfere with phase 1?
We're trying to figure out in what ways the Hart Jarvis house could be dealt with. And so, I don't know if I'm ready to speak about more than that, but I'm running every scenario you can imagine on that right now to address the issue that it presents, right? So in the zoning approval, because we came up and we agreed to the Brainerd house, and I was enthusiastically agreed to that, right? Because that would seem worth doing. Got forced into the Sage house and refused to do the Hart Jarvis house. And the Hart Jarvis house was a pass of a baton to a local nonprofit. That local nonprofit scenario has not played out in any way that is credible, right, to me, or any other human being probably. And so from that perspective, we're dealing with that, right? Because frankly, you know, it's kind of like in the middle of the parking lot, right? But at the same time, it's incredibly expensive to move, right? And so the building itself has damage from a previous fire, let alone, you know, any of the other roof issues it currently has. So I think it's to be determined as to what our proposal will be as we feel that we're getting kind of pulled into being more actively involved in the solution on that, right? Versus just saying, hey, you can move it over there, right, to the corner. So, you know, it's getting a lot of analysis. Nothing that involves that house is cheap, right? Like you can't come up with anything that's creative. There's some wings of it that are like horrible. The second level side wings have 7-foot ceilings in them, right? Completely unusable for any commercial space in a modern era, right? The center core of the building is not bad, right? 10-foot ceilings on the first and second floor, so that's usable. So, you know, it's to be determined, but I'm pretty much, you know, in the weeds on that right now. So.
So, there's no other questions. I'll just say, you know, what we discussed, and so no action item would be taken tonight on this. If the board does wish to extend this agreement another 30 days, we would have to hold a special meeting next week. Most likely it would be Wednesday, but we also meet on our budget workshop on Tuesday as well. So we are meeting next week already. One of the things that I did speak with Dan about is that, you know, it's not every time you reopen an agreement, there is a cost to the town to do that. There's legal fees that the town incurs. So I spoke with Dan, and it's my opinion that the town of Portland should not be paying for these legal fees that we're incurring, because, you know, we've held to our agreement. And so so I would, if the board wishes, I would like to request that our legal fees are paid for if we do move to extend this, as well as getting a deposit for the permit for Building E, probably by March 31st. I think that, you know, we do need to see some more skin in the game, you know, at this point.
There's a lot of skin in this game.
I know.
But
I know.
but I have no issue with the reimbursement of the legal fee and whatever payment we'd agreed to for the filing of the Building E, right? Sure. But I think there was some language on that. It was an installment of some kind on that permit. So.
Ryan, we have a meeting next Tuesday. Is there a reason why we couldn't, is it timing that we couldn't build this into next Tuesday night?
Well, we can, yeah, next Tuesday. So that's what we would do. We would hold a special meeting probably before the budget workshop, maybe at 6:30, to talk about this.
Sure.
And we
Yeah.
could do that on Tuesday, and it would give us time to speak. I mean, we have to get something drafted up. Both all our attorneys would have to look, you know, through that, and it would have to be ready by Tuesday. But I think we can do that.
Sure.
if the board is interested in you know, moving down this path.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The ball is rolling, let's keep it rolling.
All right. Well,
We'll get it done.
Amen. Thank you. Appreciate it.
all right, thanks,
All right.
Dan.
Thanks,
See you on
Dan.
Tuesday.
Thanks for coming up.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
All right, so, back to new business. Item B, we have refunds of excess payments, and Cindy Gata is here, our tax collector. Cindy, would you like to speak about this at all? So this is a little unusual, and if you look at just the number of refunds and the dollar amounts, there's some very large dollar amounts, particularly with CoreLogic. And so I know Cindy's been dealing with this in the tax office for quite some time, and it's been a lot of work
Since
sorting
July.
this mess. So, do you want to explain what's going on?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
CoreLogic is a tax reporting agency. So your banks sometimes don't pay us directly. They use a third-party service. What they do is they download their files, they send their checks to one service, and that service pays us, which is fine. We get a bulk mailing, everything is taken care of, except for when they mismatch the files. So we got a lot of files from Old Saybrook, Middlefield, not to mention just the overpayments and the people that have paid, and this is an ongoing problem. So I called CoreLogic, informed them of the issue. We went through all the accounts that were over, that paid us, that were over, and that's what you see in front of you.
This is the last of it? Just should be cleaned up after this meeting? No?
There won't be as many, but yes, that's my goal.
Good grief.
So CoreLogic is explained, the regular taxpayers that you see on that list, again, because we utilize our online service, a lot of people are looking online and they're seeing that, oh gee, the bank didn't pay yet. Is my bank paying? I don't want to be late. They pay, and then the bank pays, because the bank always waits till the last minute to pay. Therefore, that creates an overpayment for the taxpayer.
So, I just want to say thank you again for all your work on this. 'cause
You're
it's
quite
it's a
welcome.
mess, I know.
Yeah,
And,
it's getting straightened out. They assured me that this would not happen again.
All right, well, I think we can move on to the
Yeah.
refunds, but thank you for your
You're quite
explanation.
welcome.
You want somebody to make the motions?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Jeff.
All right. We'll take them one at a time.
Yep.
Refunds of excess payments. Bransport, make a motion for Bransport Robert E., $266.16, $114.51, $247.45.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries. I think we should do it one at a time, though.
Yeah,
John, if you
yeah.
don't, yeah, if you don't mind.
Do the individual dollar amounts one at a time?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Okay, CoreLogic refund, $2,647.98.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $621.25.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $586.95.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $3,136.90.
Second it.
All those,
Nope.
all those in favor? Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $3,298.82.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $1,682.37.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $2,388.21.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
CoreLogic refund, $5,722.39.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
595 LLC, $8,044.43.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Assumption Catherine, $1,352.79.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Schaefer or Schaffer Jennifer, $55.84.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Day Barbara H., $428.86.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Day Barbara H., $414.18.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Day Barbara H., $421.16.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Graph Enterprises LLC, $2,867.32.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries.
Sajak Raymond S. and Michelle E., $1,306.23.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Got me. All those in favor?
We gotta get it right. Moulton, Robert, and Sarah, $3,026.62.
Second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, John and Ralph, for that. Sean. All right, so moving on to status and committee reports. Who's got, Ralph, you want to lead it off?
Yeah, I'll lead it off. I'll start with, let's see, a couple items from water and sewer. The RFQ presentations for the company to help us look for water. They were, last I knew, they were looking for scorecards in order to collect and make a decision. So that's where it stood with that. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just add that the scorecards have been collected. I can say that it's down, we have 2 firms that have been finalized, and the next step is to get pricing. And so we're reaching out to both firms for prices.
And the other item that came out of there was that they were talking about starting the POs that have to do with the Russell water work and the Cove Avenue sewer work, so it's coming along. We'll move to EDC. Let's see, what do we got here? The last I knew, 248 Brownstone, they were talking about they were bringing the equipment to the site to begin the remediation, potentially this week.
Bob, did they do the locks today? They did, huh?
Yes.
Yesterday, okay.
It came in
Okay, great. So they're,
Okay.
we're making progress.
Yeah. The RFP for the use of that, to what could be done on that property is in the queue, ready to go out. I'm assuming it's still in the queue. I
don't want to put Tom on the spot. I think it's still in the queue.
And yet, the last thing with EDC is that they began the process of revisiting their commission goals. So those are the 3 things for EDC. And the last one's Park and Rec. With regards to that, there is, I know Nate was going to be meeting, I think it was someone from Chatham Health. They were going to have a conversation about how they can utilize the concession building. One, for how to use it to pass out, to sell prepackaged items, and then just to get a head start on understanding what would come with trying to do more than that. So they were supposed to meet this week or next,
It's
last week.
this
or
week. I talked with Nate
Thursday.
today. I mean, yep.
I think they're meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
I've lost track of what week is. I know we talked about a little about the process to begin getting ready to close out the park project, and I know to start working on that. Dorita plans to come out. There's 2 installations they have to do on the splash pad, and they're going to come out as soon as it's safe to do it and not having to worry about frost issues. So that would really be the last remaining things that we're worried about in terms of closing out that project. So that's that.
I'll just add on that, Rob. I just want to add on we are making progress on the bathrooms for this season.
I was gonna ask that question.
That was my third item, so you could go with it.
So we do have a job posting out right now. We are looking for applicants for seasonal work to be down there and just to to maintain and to monitor at different times of the day. So,
Unfortunately, there was, one of the things that Nate had noted, that there was some vandalism done at Rose Hill on the buildings. They've done some painting repair to cover up what was written on the buildings, but it's unfortunate because they were freshly painted last year. And then someone defaced them a couple weekends ago, I think it was, so. So that was painted over. I think there's a little more painting has to be done, just touch up, but for the most part, it was covered.
Do we have cameras on Rose Hill?
I don't think so.
Any
That's
video at all?
was our next discussion at the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 traffic signs, 500 streets.
Oh, really? So they did
Not
it.
a can of paint on the building.
It was everywhere.
Uh,
I was just thinking, if you had even one camera
yeah.
in the right location on the top of a backstop or something, you could pick up anybody there.
So that's something being pursued.
Bob, was all the signs in that area, or?
It seemed to be in that area, and then we have some signs that just are random weekend parks. Truck, small sign.
Oh, not a paint target, just a demolished
We
target?
had a lot of paint targets and then
Wow.
we have a lot. Spent quite a bit of money replacing signs everywhere.
The summer camp has opened up, so people can register for the summer camp, Summer Quest programs. So that's been posted online. And the last item is they are working with Brownstone Quorum to get the concert, to prepare for this summer concert series, 5 concerts. So. Oh, and the last thing I missed it, the Easter egg, yes. We spent a lot of time talking about the Easter egg hunt, and that's gonna be on April 9th at the new park. So there's flyers out, I think, already, but are soon to come out. I think that covers it.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph.
For the school facilities committee, we had a meeting, Monday night, and they gave us 5 or 6 options of, what the town can look at for renovations, closing schools, building schools. The big meeting will be next month, when they come back with prices for those plans. And they will also give us what the state reimbursement will be for each plan.
Thanks, Bob. Any other updates? All right, we'll move on then to public comment. Anyone in the audience? Nothing in the chat. All right. Seeing none, we will move on to Board of Selectmen general informal discussion. I don't have anything, except, let's get back to the budget, I guess. And then there's nothing tonight under follow-up items, the ethics ordinance or the review of the town charter. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
And make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Bobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And so we'll take just a couple, you guys gotta take a break for a second, and then we'll reconvene in a second. We'll need a motion to, just wanna make sure everyone's ready. Is everyone ready? No? Okay, good. All right.
Sean's never ready.
Tom, you ready? Get ready? All right.
We're on
More ready.
99.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. Someone like to make a motion to?
I'll make a motion, we resume our review of the budget.
I
Thank you,
second that.
John. And thank you, Sean. It's 8:27, so we will get back to the budget, and we left off with Finance Director Tom Robinson. We left off with.
Page 99, I believe.
Yes, yeah, the library.
Yeah, so we had almost wrapped up the majority of the library. The only thing I will make note, the library, as well as many other budgets, budget departments requested more funding for books, more funding for digital media, and those just could not be met at this time. So just want to let you know there are many cuts, reductions to what the departments put in. But that was the only other component on this. This is a 4.07% increase, but there were other additional items requested.
Tom, I just want to add that the selectmen have in their packets a letter from the Library Board of Directors, I believe. Laurel, thank you for that. So I just want to make sure that everyone's received that. All right, thank you, Tom.
Page 101. Page 101 is the fringe benefits for all the general fund employees other than the Board of Ed. So we do have two types of pension plans. We have a defined contribution plan, which is open to, there's a defined benefit plan for the town employees, that is closed. There's a defined benefit plan for police, that is open. There's a defined benefit plan for the volunteer fire, that is open. The town, there are members in the town plan. There are, the people that would have been in the DB plan for the town are now in the DC plan. That happened quite a while back now. So those individuals receive 6%. They are required to put in 6% of their salary, or we give them 6% of their salary as a contribution. That plan is continually increasing in membership as well as plan assets. So if we have put some funds into this number to have in there for possible an investment advisor, we utilize fiducian for our investment advisor for the DB plans. Probably a consideration of potentially expanding their services under the DC plan side, so that we do have coverage more than Ryan and myself as the main individuals that are plan administrators. So that's occurred. All other pension plans are actuarially valued. So there's actuarial values that occur yearly. For the town plan, there's been some change in personnel, and the required contribution decreased slightly. And again, that was a very strong investment year in this plan year. The police plan dropped by a 3% amount, or about $9,000. And again, that was due to the strong investments. The volunteer fire plan has a smaller group of investments, although it's steadily increased over the years. A while back, we kind of changed the investment activity flow in that, and changed the structure and what that was in. So they are invested, but the investments options are due to the limited asset value, they're conservative. So during this valuation, to make the actuary requested that we reduce our our return factor from 6% to 5.5%. So that definitely made sense to me, as based on the investment strategy that we have. So that actually resulted in a 25% increase in the required contribution by $18,540. So we'll, as the investments hopefully continue to rise. Right now, it's kind of a up and down situation, but we may be able to change, work with the investment advisors and possibly change our strategy to make it a little less cash and short-term driven as asset funds grow. This, in fiscal '23, our other post-employment actuarial evaluation will be required to be done. Medical trail claims are expected to increase based on the claims history, but it was a reasonable return, roughly around about a 5% return. That's in this market is quite good. The CT interlocal risk management KERMA said that our workers' comp would remain flat this year, so you see that as well. We did increase some of the vacation, so there's various rules on how vacation pays are paid out, as well as sick time. And as you can see, based on the actuals, they were definitely higher than we had previously budgeted. So we were trying to, as time goes on, the dollar values go up. So we're trying to raise a couple of those up somewhat. So you see a $10,000 increase in line 1901 and in 1903. So that is 101, that is fringe benefits. Page 103 is risk management. Risk management generally has there has been some activity increases of just the general items, which over the lap has been a reasonable increase in that based on claim activity. Some of the areas that that cause a higher increase are the excess liability coverage that we carry, and so we put those into effect in 2020, and those rates continue to be estimated higher as various things occur within the country. The rates are higher on some of those coverages. We did we had put some funds in for some other various coverage that we talk about more in the insurance, the risk in the cyber area, and so we in that we have the town and the board, the selectmen last year, as we had talked about this coverage, had decided to pay for the cyber or that type of coverage from the town side, and that is still within the budget in this way. There are potential increases in that amount that are quite high, as well as the rate that we had was it was a very, very good rate that was capped by the insurance agency, and the rate is higher and would be budgeted higher for this year. When we talk about risk and management, we don't really talk too much about the different levels and dollar values, because those are items that we want to we have them and they're covered, and the policy limits are reviewed by me and Ryan and the insurance agents every year as we do renewals. But that is causing about a 12.13% increase at this current time. If we do hear anything better, we hear anything about better renewals on other items, you know, we will let you know as we go on. But they're hard, those renewals are hard, they take a long time, and they usually get settled right near the beginning of the fiscal year, so we probably will not know too much more. Page 105 is our debt. A component of our 2012 refunding has component of the principal that kind of fallen off in this year, and we were aware of that being there. This year, that was kind of why in the capital lease that was done last year, it was more done as an interest rate driven lease, and then the principal payment would be in the current year. So for the capital lease that we did last year, which is fiscal year 22, we paid that as the $300,000 for the Chromebooks. We did that over the term of that leases, and there was a principal interest right away, and the remainder of it was interest only, and then the first principal payment was then expedited to be in September of fiscal 23, and that was also known due to the fact of this funds coming down. So with that being said, there's about a 15.2% decrease in this number, and when did that decrease, we try to take the decrease and we try to increase it into capital. So when you get to the capital, you'll see that the increase in capital is very, very close to the difference between the principal payment and the principal budgeted, or the global debt decrease in debt service is what you're seeing for that increase in the capital. Page 107. Page 107, you're seeing a 37% increase. You see there's an increase in the animal control line. You see an increase in youth service. There is increases within the resource recovery. Resource recovery, the tipping fees. We're talking about this next week, but tipping fees gone up. There were some personnel changes. That more or less just relationship changes which cause fringe benefits to go up. And there's nothing you really can do about that. And then Park and Rec, you'll see an increase. We'll talk about that next week as well, but that was an increase there was a $37,000 of ARPA money that was allocated to be utilized in fiscal 22 as a revenue offset. That was in the budget. It's being reviewed by the department to see if it can be utilized as such, and so we'll have to see how they do that throughout the remainder of this year. But for next year, that money was not put as in a revenue offset, so therefore there was really no other revenue to be generated, so therefore causing an increase in the Park and Rec transfer. There was a decrease in part of the other transfer, and that was due to monies that were going to the landfill closure fund last year, were moved last year, and were not needed to be moved this year. So that is kind of, it's tricky because this is one of those ones where we talk about a lot of these funds next week. So what I will do is I will touch upon the funds that we can talk about this week. But I will flip to page 109 first. That is contingency. We have contingency, we budget $100,000 of contingency, and we utilize that for items that are not budgeted elsewhere and/or to covering overages within the budget. So the next item is page 119. 119 is animal control. It is Fund 4. Animal control, as you can see back in 20, had around $40,000 that we were receiving from the city of Middletown. In 21, halfway through the year, the city of Middletown decided to leave the town of Portland, as I guess they built their own updated facility. So we had about a half of a year, and we had budgeted about $6,000 of just hopeful revenue for property rental. We're hoping to get some type of a tenant. Continue that on in 2022, 23 at $2,000. The other items relate to, dog licenses and things of that occur. And then we have the transfer in from the general fund. The budget currently, the 22 budget had the animal control officers being reduced to 30 hours. That has not occurred. So as you see, the salary will be closer to what it's been in the 101 line with union increases. So that did not occur and has not occurred, so it's still a full-time 40-hour position. So in 23's budget, there is budgeted a 30-hour reduction. I'm sorry, a 30-hour week, which is a 10-hour reduction a week. That is in that budget. It would have to be determined if that was to be, enforced if the budget passes. Most of the remainder of the budget was left more or less the same as it was, the remainder of the functionality of the department does kind of operate the same. Currently, any of the overages are being absorbed by fund balance. But in time, we have to watch that as you keep utilizing fund balance. In time, fund balance is no longer there. So that is the animal control fund. And fund page 124. It's the youth service fund. The youth service fund utilized fund balance of $40,000 last year to balance the budget. We're trying to, the intent was a one-time utilization of fund balance, but in this budget we're trying to bring that back halfway. So in this budget we're utilizing $20,000 of fund balance to balance this budget. The bigger transition, the decision was made in fiscal 22's budget cycle to transfer the Kids Blast program to the Park and Rec fund. So the Kids Blast program, which you can see in line 00364 in fiscal 20, was transferred to the Kids Blast program. In 21, due to the schools, it was more or less shut down anyway. So it was, and that was kind of what caused the transition, as well as the projected retirement of the individual that ran the program. So that was moved into the Park and Rec program. It's in that budget. It's being run from that budget. So with that being said, the main amount is the related youth service grant that has been there to pay for a portion of the director's salary, and then also as a portion of the consultant's salary. The DSS of 5,000, that is, there is a individual that is a who would you call him, Jim? Who would he be?
He's a youth and family therapist.
A youth and family therapist. And he, thanks Jesse, and he can generate revenue based on the services that he provides. And this, there's a potential for funds to come back through the DSS. The other amounts, you know, are potential. The resource center was if that gentleman also can do private pay. So there's work that he can do that generate private pay. That's a much harder amount to come by. So that's why we only budget a $500 amount. And then the contributions and donations are items that are contributions that don't flow into specific other categories that are within another, a Fund 84, which we have as a miscellaneous grants fund. The offset to this is the transfer in from the general fund. So this year it's an increase to the 77. In all likelihood, in '24 it would be an increase to 97,000 as you wean off the use of fund balance. This fund has more or less the employee, the director. There was, in this year's budget, there was a temporary payroll individual, and there has been a person that has been helping and working in this facility that I'm sure has exceeded the $7,500 budgeted amount there. That position has been removed from this budget, and it will have to be assessed with the director to determine if, you know, if programmatically it can continue properly and continue to, the department can continue to function well without that type of temporary payroll. The next page is 126. There is monies in there for the CRC consulting. That is the CRC, they're an ECC consulting. So the CRC, there would be the individual that Jesse had spoken of, he would be paid from that area, and there's also generally another consultant that helps with early childhood consultant. That person had left, I think, last year, and that's kind of why there's a temporary person there now as an employee, because going back into that 0222 account, the 25,200, there's only a certain amount of monies that are allowed to be paid through for the director's salary, and then there has to be other expenses that offset that. So some of the work that is being done by this temporary employee, as well as the funds here in the consultant. So the likelihood is we would expand the, you know, an ECC would attempt to gather another ECC consultant that would work, you know, with Jesse, and that would be charged. Part of that would be charged to the grants that he does receive. Any questions? A little bit confusing, but any questions on that? Those are the funds for tonight. The remainder of the funds would be public works and public works related, or Parks and Rec, or long range capital. So those we'll be looking forward to on March 22nd.
Well, thank you, Tom. We covered a lot of ground tonight, and there's a lot more to go. And as Tom mentioned, our next budget workshop will be held on Tuesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. here in the Buck Foreman room, and also on Zoom. And so, unless there's any comments from the selectmen, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Bobby.
Second that.
Sean seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Stop.